C2 Wrestling podcast with a special Wednesday edition. It's the Thanksgiving C2 Wrestling podcast episode. CTD Snowden here. Snowden, this is the most commitment we could possibly show. An easy week for us to be like, hey, let's just not do the podcast. Well, holiday week. No. We got wrestling to talk. We've got stuff we want to talk about. We got to get to the podcast.
Absolutely. Nothing says commitment other than me waking up to do this podcast. It is early in the morning here, kind of. Sunday morning.
It's 10 a.m.
Yeah, it's 10 a.m. Early Sunday morning. I'm tired, but we're up. I'm committed to this podcast. Again, Sunday morning, though, Wednesday release episode, because Thursday is Thanksgiving. So we're coming at you a little bit early this week. We got a little bit to discuss regarding the 3 announced matches to Survivor Series coming up this weekend. We normally release Thursday podcasts. Prior to PLE's pay-per-views, they are usually prediction videos, go over the pay-per-view a little bit. Seemingly a couple more things maybe to get announced for the PLE that we might miss out on here since we are recording a little early, but that is okay. We're going to hit you guys with follow-up videos, review videos, not only just that, live reaction this Saturday to Survivor Series. We will be here. You should be as well. I'll be a little bit more awake for that one. Be during the middle of the day. But for now, where do you want to get started?
I want to get started on why we're recording early, as I chew on my tongue as usual. Normally, we record about a day to a day and a half before.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. You already got Raw. We get all the Raw stuff, whatever. It's normally not too bad. I am going to Vegas for work. Not going for fun. Going to be so busy. If you want to know how busy I'll be, how busy I am today in general and going forward, look at that whiteboard. I just noticed it in the shop. That's normally a lot more white in there. Look at all that writing that's just flooding it. And I wish all of that was about wrestling. None of it is.
Yeah, none of it is this time around, unfortunately. But like we keep saying to all you C2 fans, we're just people. Yeah. We're out here making wrestling content, living lives, going to work, coming home, making more wrestling content. We are committed to this hectic schedule this week with the holidays, with work. Yet we're here. We're committed.
We've had on this podcast the Snowden ankle injury episode. We have had the Snowden sick episode. Almost every week is the Snowden congested episode. I think there was another one that I'm missing. This week, we got Sleepy Boy Snowden in the house.
Yeah, I am gonna take a nap after this one. I'll tell you that. Nah, I'm okay. I'm awake. We're here. Listen, I wake up for work all the time. I don't sleep is the problem, okay? I don't go to sleep. So, it is only 10 a.m. I say only 10 a.m. because I don't go to bed till 6 a.m., So
thank God I did not get that drinking yet.
So I'm running on a little bit of fumes here, but it's for the C2 fans. This is what we do. This is what we like to do. I woke up no problem today, knowing that I'm going to go to work. I got to do a wrestling video.
Yeah, and then watch football all day. So there's worse things in life, but
yeah,
we'll get going here with Survivor Series. Now, there's only been 3 matches announced. There's a couple matches that are possible. I don't want to speculate, especially since Saturday night's main event is a little over 2 weeks away. And they essentially announced Cody versus Owens for that. I know Cody said in the promo, like, oh, I don't care when it is. If it's Survivor Series, if it's Saturday night's main event, whatever. But then their YouTube channel put out, like, Cody Rhodes challenges Kevin Owens for Saturday night's main event. So
yeah,
that pretty much does that. The 3 announced matches, we obviously have the 2 War Games matches, but we got to start, since this is a Gunther Stan account, we got to kick things off with the World Heavyweight Championship match. The Ring General Gunther defending against Damian Priest. The roles reversed. I don't feel like this story is rushed by any
No.
means, but I think I'm at the point where I'm really starting to enjoy this new layer to their rivalry that I don't want this match happening yet. Like I'm cool with it happening obviously on Saturday, but it's like I would love a few more weeks of this really flustered Gunther who's just, completely thrown off and Priest just strong as can be. I wouldn't hate that at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think regardless of the timing, whether this match happens this coming Saturday, a few days from now, or in 5 weeks, doesn't matter. This does wonders for Priest. Having him be the one that's kind of got Gunther on edge, flustered, uncertain if he can do it, does well for Priest. That puts him over big time, in my opinion. Gunther, again, you already mentioned it. This is Gunther Stanica. We are Gunther diehards here. I want nothing but the best for him. And this is, I can argue, maybe the best feud he's had as champion so far, to be honest. And I know this is a little bit of a rehash because he obviously won the title from Damian Priest. But we have said this prior. Them kind of pushing this along a few months and not immediately doing the rematch has done wonders for this feud. It's definitely made it a little bit more must see. And it definitely helped Priest, I think, too. I think Priest, who had a great run with Judgment Day, winning the world title up until losing the world title, he might have lost a little bit of steam there for that month or so after losing the title. But putting him back into this feud, number one contender again, I think does wonders for him. Now, I think it's evident our man Gunther is retaining here. He's going to walk out of Survivor Series, walk out of Vancouver with the World Heavyweight Championship. It leads me to wonder not only what's next for Gunther, but more importantly, what's next for Damian Priest. I think Gunther has a lot of avenues he can go, especially as World Heavyweight Champion. With Priest, it's tough to guarantee where he goes next. Maybe there's some rehash again with the Judgment Day, but they've seemed to kind of move on from that. So to pull out a Balor Priest feud again, I don't know if that works the same as rehashing the Gunther Priest feud. It's interesting to see. I want them to showcase Priest here. I want them to have a match in which Priest can really put himself out there, get himself over a bit more again. I want him to stay in the mix, is my worry. I don't want him to fall out of any title contender mix. I believe you had mentioned it on one of our recent reviews. Maybe it was a Raw review. Damian Priest, Braun Breaker could be an up-and-coming potential feud, maybe for an Intercontinental Championship. I think that's great to keep him in the mix. But for now, Survivor Series. Gunther Priest, I imagine this match opens the show, maybe fits in the middle, maybe they use it as an in-betweener to separate the two War Games matches. Again, maybe we won't speculate on what's to come. It's hard to guarantee any other matches on the card, but with one or two more matches probably getting thrown in, they might not even be title matches, especially not to this stature of a World Heavyweight title. As you said, it's pretty much confirmed Saturday night's main event is Owens versus Cody. I'd like to believe Cody was just kind of riffing in that promo when he mentioned Survivor Series. I feel this has been locked in for Saturday night's main event for a while now. Survivor Series, though, you got two matches that are going to be an hour each. I'm not going to lie. I know the typical social media fans would hate this. It could be a three-match card, in my opinion. I'm not even going to lie to you. It could be a three-match card. I'd be fine with it. Maybe throw a fourth,
It'd be
a
2.5
fifth
hours.
at
Like
most.
that's not that
Exactly.
outlandish.
Yeah, that's not that outlandish, And listen, I'm not going to throw shade at AEW or any other companies, but just coming off the back of Full Gear, that was a 5-hour show, something along those lines. I caught it in bits and pieces. I was out and about on a Saturday night, unfortunately, but it's a long show, man. That's a lot to get through. And we've been through that run with WWE in the past. We were live in person for a 8-hour WrestleMania 33. It's exhausting. These shorter shows, I understand wanting more than 3 matches. I get that for sure. But when you got these War Games matches, they'll take up a bit of time. Gunther versus Priest, I don't think it's getting the hype it deserves right now, unfortunately.
I think they're going to add maybe one more match.
Yeah.
I feel like one more kind of makes sense if you went like generic match War Games, generic match War Games. So generic as in like non-war games, not just a random match.
Yeah.
I could see the IC title or the US title getting worked into the mix, but at the same time, with Saturday night's main event right around the corner, it could really be these matches end up on either card. Like it wouldn't be surprising at all. We I know there's SmackDown spoilers out there. I haven't looked at
Seen
them
any? Yeah.
yet. I've actually done a great job at staying away from them.
Me too. Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe they announce LA Shinsuke. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Maybe on Raw we get the IC title. I don't know. But on Priest specifically, before Gunther, you had mentioned like it felt like Priest was kind of losing a little bit of steam for a
Mm.
little bit and then it picked back up. That's my worry with the inevitable return of the Balor Priest feud. Because not that the match would be bad and not that there's not some long story there, but that build to their first match got so repetitive, so quick that I'm worried. I don't know if you can bring that fresh spin that they've brought to this Priest Gunther rematch. It's just such a different story and it's so locked in on like they were brothers essentially, former tag champs together, former leaders together, whatever, and now they've gone their separate ways. Like that story was what was being told. There's really no new avenue to that story unless Priest were to somehow be the champion again. That would really be the only other avenue. I would hate if this is just Balor costs Priest the world title again, and that's how they spark it all back up. It's like, I get it, but at the same time, it's just seeing the same thing. Not saying they're going to do that. Gunther has so many avenues after Survivor Series. But right now, from Survivor Series on, we're really going to start to see some Mania matches start to take shape
Yeah.
because we are not too far away. We've been saying it for the past month. Mania, it sneaks up on you all the time.
Yeah.
And the Mania matches build. Some of them started Survivor Series. Look at Brock versus Goldberg, their first matchup at Survivor Series. That was all build towards the payoff at Mania. Like some matches do spring from Survivor Series. Could Roman Solo start there? I don't know. But it wouldn't shock me if like a Balor Priest kind of gets the momentum going from Survivor Series. Punk Rollins seems to be a Mania match. That's going to kind of, you know, this is a step towards it with Survivor Series. I wouldn't hate Priest versus Balor being the Mania match. I wouldn't be crazy if Balor interferes and this is the start of the build back towards it because there's a long way to go.
Yeah, I would hate the interference by the Judgment Day, Finn Balor, anybody, especially considering Gunther's one of those guys where when you look back at Bash in Berlin, Gunther versus Orton, I want to clear the blemish off my record here. Gunther won the world title. There ain't no bad way to win the world title. Carry a pocket full of sand if you got it to win the world title, in my opinion. But the guy that Gunther is picking up a clean win over Priest here this time around does wonders for Gunther, I think. Maybe that's a small little thing in reality, but to me, I like seeing Gunther with these clean victories on his record. I think that bodes well for him. Now, with Judgment Day, there's a little bit of tension between Finn and JD versus really Dom right now. Maybe Dom and Carlito on one side, Finn and JD on the other. Maybe there's an avenue where you can tie Priest back into something along those lines and he's siding with Dom or somebody. I don't know. It seems a little tough to maybe rework him in entirely that way. I think, unfortunately, now the entirety of the Judgment Day, when Judgment Day first came around with Edge, great, interesting. Edge has got a stable, new music, new look. Very quickly, that went away. And they kind of lost me there for a bit when they cut Edge out of that group. I'm not going to lie. That was really like a blemish for a while on the group. They recovered pretty well, not going to lie. Judgment Day turned out in the long run to be a pretty great stable, tied into a lot of these main feuds leading into Mania 40. I think the way it played out, the way it happened, they kind of timing wise had to break up the Judgment Day with Priest and Finn and all that tension. and Rhea as well. And Rhea is still over the moon. I'm starting to see a little bit of shade towards Rhea on social media, which is baffling to me. Priest is still over, but he had a little bit of like a down period, sure. But I think in hindsight, breaking up the Judgment Day was maybe a slight mistake. Maybe they could have done something to keep them together and it would have kept a little bit more, I don't know, kind of eyes on Priest, maybe on Rhea as well. The Dom Live stuff has been great, don't get me wrong, but it feels like something's missing in that stable, the Judgment Day. I would not be surprised if they break up the Finn, JD, Dom, that kind of stable, because it's not really the Judgment Day anymore, if we're being honest. Again, in hindsight, when they had formed Street Trash, we'll call it, not that that's a great name, but maybe they should have changed the name from Judgment Day. I'm not opposed to them kind of just cycling people through this stable that is the Judgment Day, similar to Bullet Club like we've seen in the past. But I don't know. Maybe they should have changed the name. Maybe they should have became a new stable and it would have had a little bit more life to it than it currently does. Regardless, though, Damian Priest, that's my worry. Again, as I said, a lot of avenues for Gunther. If you're not rehashing Priest versus Finn, what do you do with Damian?
That's definitely tough. I mean, you got the Rumble build going, so he's going to start working into the mix there.
Yeah.
And also the Raw Netflix move, anything can really happen. I saw that rosters aren't really going to change. Like Cody and Roman are going to be there, but
yeah,
they're not going to be fully, full blown just to Raw for good. So it feels like there's not a lot of avenues, but at the same time, it wouldn't shock me if, like, I still think the Mania match is going to be him versus Finn. I still think
yeah.
that's going to
I
be.
definitely see that. I think it makes more sense to even do it there, like rehash it, but kind of really slowly build it till Mania. Like as crazy as that sounds, that's better and makes more sense than like rehashing it, but having them face at Saturday Night's Main Event or Raw January 6th, the Rumble. I feel like you got to kind of extend it a little further. I do think Priest is like kind of the guy, even though he's on a little bit of a downside. It's kind of the guy to be like in the Rumble Final Four, maybe get a little bit of a bigger showing in the Rumble, just to kind of keep him at that main event level. Honestly, put it on paper. Damian Priest, Final Four, Royal Rumble. I can predict it. But Priest, Finn, post that. I don't even know what you do post that with Damian right now. He's a little bit lost at the moment in time. I think he's a guy that I don't know if this is coming, but would really benefit from like a draft. Switch it up, throw him on SmackDown. Maybe when you got all these mega stars and Cody and Roman and Punk coming over to Raw, maybe Priest gets a little bit of a spotlight on SmackDown. I don't know.
I mean, that's so far down the line that
It's tough. Yeah.
At the same time, a Priest Bronson Reed feud sounds great.
Yeah.
When Bronson gets freed from Seth, so there's some avenues. I don't think there's going to be anything like out of this world crazy. I have mentioned I do think the Mania match will be him versus Finn, just because that's kind of how they've done a lot of things. Think of the Jimmy J booking. Not saying it was good, but it started. You have SummerSlam, whatever, and then you completely separate them for a while, and then they kind of have their face back at the Rumble, and like it's the Mania match, even though they're really not interacting. That's kind of where I feel right now. We've gotten to with Priest and Balor. Now, the Judgment Day, they're clearly teasing the split. An issue with that split is they're all still going to be heels. None of
Yeah.
them should be turning face. Maybe Carlito, but really, like, he's not one of the main people anyway. You're
Yeah.
not turning Finn face. You're not turning JD face. You shouldn't turn Dom face. That's for sure. Like, there's
Yeah.
not going to be a face turn coming. So I don't know. Maybe it's they just keep teasing this friction, and then they're all back on the same page to attack Damian Priest. I don't know. I do think, though, if there isn't an interference, I actually do think Gunther cheats to win.
Huh.
I don't think he gets a clean win here because
Interesting.
I think that adds to his situation of him second guessing, him being worried that he is so frantic, so worried that he has to take the cheap route because he's so afraid of losing. He can't put Priest away. Whatever it is, hits him with a low blow when the ref isn't look. However it is, you know, boot to the cojones. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think this is kind of being built to a very likely chance that we don't get a clean victory from Gunther. Because look, Gunther stand account. We do also love Priest. It would kind of really suck for Priest if you spend a month talking about how I've got this guy's number. I'm one upping him the entire time. I'm the baby face. He's the heel. If he was the baby face, this would make sense. But he's the
Yeah.
heel. I've got this edge on him, and then he just beats me clean. Like that's a story of a face against a
Yeah.
heel. So I
Yeah.
kind of think actually the way we don't have Finn interfere and Gunther still win is Gunther kind of cheats a little. Maybe Ludwig helps, something along those lines. I actually think that might be the route to the finish.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a possibility. I again had just previously mentioned Gunther kind of clearing those blemishes, winning clean, and kind of standing tall at the end of it. I can definitely foresee that though, him perhaps cheating to win this one over Priest. But now, does that just prolong this Priest Gunther feud a little bit? Do they maybe get a third match at Saturday night's main event?
I
Tough
don't
to
think so. 'Cause
guarantee.
I think you pull like the I'm 2-0 on you. It doesn't matter how it happened. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you weren't the cleanest champion either. So, what are you going to
yeah.
do? Calling the kettle black?
Yeah, I agree. I could definitely foresee that happening to some extent. I don't know where I'd sit on that. I definitely like it for the story idea that, Gunther doesn't think he can do it. He's doubting himself a little bit. I definitely understand that. Part of me with Gunther, man, I really like the strong, undefeated, pretty much champion, So I could float either way on it. But regardless, this should be a great matchup. Sitting in between again two War Games matches at Survivor Series. Right now, the only other match in the card, the only singles match, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. These two guys can go. We've seen them do it before. We're going to see them do it again.
And they beat the tar out of each other at SummerSlam.
Absolutely. Yep.
It was one of those matches that was very good, was on a card that it's kind of not tough to stand out, but SummerSlam was stacked with names and great matches that there's always going to be big moments, big matches that you kind of forget about. People focus on the finish. They focus on Finn getting involved, the official split of the Judgment Day. They kind of forget that they were beating the crap out of each other before that. They
Mm-hmm.
were chopping the hell out of each other. Like that was a hard hitting match and it was fun. Like it was a very enjoyable match. I expect that again to another level because it's kind of a different aspect. I expect Priest to be a little more on the upper hand with those hard hitting chops. And I'm actually really excited for this match. Not that it's overshadowed, but the pay per view is literally Survivor Series War Games.
Yeah.
Like everyone's focus is going to be on War Games, specifically the men's War Games match. I get that. This might need the stamp of people's main event. Maybe might need the stamp of like C2's main event. Like
Yeah.
this is a good match.
Yeah. If this fell in line with any other show that wasn't War Games, it very well is the main event. Now, I understand, again, there's a lot of great stuff going on with just the bloodline in general and Cody Owens. Obviously, that's another pretty much guaranteed main event for Saturday night's main event. But Gunther and Priest both deserve the spotlight here. I don't want anyone sleeping on this match again. I understand everything being considered maybe a little filler for sitting in between two War Games matches again, but Damian Priest, Gunther, those two are the best guys going right now. They really are holding down that Raw brand, and they really have been for a little while now. There's been some guys to trickle in like CM Punk. Drew's been great over the year. Rollins, Cody. There was the big bloodline feud, but if we're really going to narrow it down to brands, Gunther and Priest been running the show on Raw for a while, and they deserve the spotlight.
And they both not just running the show, like they both have clear cut moments where they were the best thing on that show.
Absolutely.
So I'm all for this match. Now we'll get to the two War Games matches because we only have three announced matches.
Mm-hmm.
The women's War Games match, yes, feels a little bit thrown together,
Mm-hmm.
but in the last week to week and a half, they've started to really pump some actual stories to it with the folds of Jade being taken out.
Yep.
It's pretty clear it was either Bailey or Naomi who took her out.
Yep.
One spoiler I did see from SmackDown. So this is a
As did I.
SmackDown
Yep.
spoiler,
Forgot.
putting it out there. Bailey is the fill-in, which I just assumed when watching the episode of SmackDown this past Friday, so it wasn't really a spoiler to me.
Yeah.
On the other side, with Team Naya or Team, Liv, whatever you
Live.
want to call it,
Yeah.
you have the story of Naya with Tiffany and Candice LeRae and that little
Mm-hmm.
trio. Before actually, something that just popped in my head, before getting into the match specifically, I just
Mm-hmm.
need to mention again how much I hated the Crown Jewel champion versus champion match because literally the very
Yep.
next PLE, Nia Jax and Liv Morgan are on the same War Games team.
Yep. It throws a monkey wrench into their plans,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
That show is obviously, as we've
If that
repeated
never
many
happened,
times
this
over
makes like
season
so
two.
much more sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. That whole show's exhibition, and I get it, but it's still kind of a shame because it does take away a little bit of the sensibility of what's coming up with this War Games match. I agree. Nia, Liv teaming up. I don't hate it at all. I really don't. I think they're two good heels to team up together. It makes a lot of sense. But maybe I'm missing out here. Like, they didn't really tie it into their match, that they had together. It's not like they had this match and then they respected each other after. Like, it's almost like they had this match and then we literally quickly erased it from history. And now they're teaming up. They didn't really maybe smoothly transition it. I'm a little bit more invested in the other things going on right now in comparison to this women's War Games match because it is a little bit thrown together. But I do agree over the last week or so, they have added some more storylines into it. Like you said, Jade getting injured with 97 injuries as she was just thrown onto the car, whatever they announced she hurt herself with. They could have easily just said she popped her shoulder out. She's out for a week. But no, they went for a Baroque and said she's going to be in the hospital for 6 months. Some crazy
They
injuries
put out
apparently for
words I've never
Jade.
even seen
Seen
before.
before. Yeah, they're making up injuries, honestly. Yeah. But I do think there's some added layers to the storyline where Bailey or Naomi who attacked her, but then there's some tension, blah 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 blah. Who's to say it was even Bailey or Naomi? To be honest with you, who knows?
Could it
Who knows?
be could it be the Queen?
Could it be the Queen? It could be. It could be anybody. I Bailey again filling the spot for War Games again. It's a little bit of a spoiler, sorry, but
I already
that
said it.
was
You're good.
pretty. Yeah, that was okay. That was pretty evident that was going to happen. That wasn't really anything outlandish in my opinion. One of the better things, and I believe I mentioned this during our SmackDown review last week, was the triangle, as you mentioned, between Tiffany, Nia, Candice. I think that's the best thing going on either of the two teams right now. That little addition of Candice, for whatever reason, has added a little bit more life, I feel like, to that Nia Tiffany kind of tit for tat, team up, feud, rivalry, whatever you want to call it. They've been kind of at odds the entire time. But now you got Tiffany and Candice completely at odds. Nia trying to kind of corral the group. I think that does great for them, actually. I would like to see almost an extension of that past Survivor Series, especially with the loss of Indy Hartwell, unfortunately, who was let go by WWE. You now have Candice LeRae as kind of free to go around and be a solo wrestler, maybe get into a new team. And she's great. She's definitely somebody they should be showcasing a little bit more, in my opinion. So having her tied in to any degree, I'm for it.
Normally, when you have that kind of quick change in a story, it feels rushed. It feels kind of like, why is this a thing?
Yeah.
This feels like it just worked right away.
Yeah.
Like the very first week when they teamed together, Candace got the pin on, I think Naomi it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like that very first week, it just started working instantly. Like for
Yeah.
me at least. Like it normally that quick change, that quick little new layer to a story that they had been working on normally really doesn't click right away. And it's really
Mm,
kind of like this feels random. This feels, not thrown together, but this feels like out of place, or they're doing it just to add a number. This actually feels like a pretty solid story. And I think War Games is the perfect match where you build that moment of these two are kind of fighting for Nia Jax's attention. They're also kind of fighting for her approval. Leads to moments of they're not on the same page. They try to do too much. Now, I'm not saying this is going to lead to the finish or anything, but that's how you add to these types of stories throughout the match. It doesn't
yeah.
have to be the entire story of the match, it doesn't have to be the finish of the match, but it's those little things that add the layers to another story while you're in one. So I think we're going to see that a few times throughout the match. That's probably, if I'm being honest, probably what interests me the most
Mm-hmm.
in this match. I love Rhea. That
Mm-hmm.
is like without said. The recent slander is blasphemous.
Blasphemous.
The Rhea Liv story though is just so run its course.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. They kind of wanted to do Rhea Raquel again. What I was just saying. Sometimes when you randomly add someone and it kind of just works right away, Raquel's almost the opposite. That very first moment of her being added, timing is off,
Mm-hmm.
everything gets messed up, and from the jump, it just doesn't feel as organic.
I agree. I think the overall problem with this women's War Games match is despite the names in it, despite the little additions to the feuds, the rivalries, all these intertwined stories, this is also exhibition. I don't think it really matters who wins this match, who pins who takes the pin. This match is going to happen. It's going to end. And then everybody involved is going to kind of go on their own little path again, separate ways. Maybe Candice stays tied into Tiffany and Nia a little bit, sure. Maybe there's a little bit of storytelling there, but the match might be great, but the overall idea of it is maybe forgettable. I again think whoever wins this match is going to win, and then everybody just moves on from it, and it's exhibition at that point. Now, maybe this is bold. I don't know. I don't think it is, but between the two teams, right? I think there's a clear winner pick here. I'm not going to lie, but I want to ask you who you think is going to take the win first.
I don't know. See, my problem is when it comes to the double war games, it's very similar to me to both Rumbles, where I start to
Mm-hmm.
overthink it and I go, well, if this team's going to win, then they're not going to have this other team win the other match because you're not going to have two heels win, or you're not going to have two faces win, or you're not going to have the members that are mainly from Raw win compared to the members. Like, I start to overthink it. I'm going to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume the faces win,
Okay.
but the wrinkle of Bailey and Naomi kind of friction and Jade being taken out, I could see the faces losing from that. Like I know I
Yeah.
mentioned it potentially with Candice. I don't think that's like match costing. I think that's,
Yeah.
the little droplets. I think that leads to their team actually losing because that's the main story of this match.
Yeah. Now, I think a difference between, maybe the Candice LeRae and Tiffany tit for tat is that's kind of more of a like one upsmanship type tit for tat, where the Bailey Naomi is tension.
Yes.
That's a little bit more like we're gonna fight, where Candice and Tiffany are both trying to like be better than one another, kind of.
It's an I don't
Uh,
trust you.
exactly, yeah, and that could form into something. Now, again, maybe this isn't as bold as I'm claiming it to be, but I think Nia, Liv, both your world champions on one team, gotta win the match. You gotta put the champions over here. You have both your world champions on one team facing a team of contenders that are kind of thrown together. There's a little bit of tension between them. Raya's coming off an injury. Raya, who again, any sort of slander is blasphemous, doesn't need a win. Doesn't need this win. Raya could lose the next 100 matches and is still as over as she is right now. I think it does a lot for Liv and Nia as the champions who just faced, don't get me wrong, but I don't even have to explain it. Imagine having Gunther and Cody on the same team in the War Games match. Unless they're against Roman and this and that, unless they're against these big titleless names, your champions come out on top in that, in my opinion.
To be fair, that other team is stacked. Like
Yeah,
Jade being taken off does, I don't want to say lessens it because Bailey's obviously got more credential wise, but the way
yeah.
they've been booked, like Jade obviously has been booked as losing less.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. Like you should have, if both your champions are on the same team, unless them having friction between each other leads to the loss, which
Yeah.
doesn't make sense in this story. They shouldn't lose. At the same time, they're facing Rhea, Bianca. Like those are
Yeah.
the two, like, I mean, WrestleMania main event level women's wrestlers. So to be fair,
Absolutely.
they kind of do have the Roman of the women's division and the Cody of the women's division or whatever on the other team. But I do agree with you. Both your champions should not be on the losing team.
Yeah. And now those names, though, don't get me wrong, they do have a lot of star power, of course, but Bianca's missing her actual tag team partner. And Bianca's been in a tag team title mix for a while now. Still a champion, but, maybe it hasn't been at the level she has been at for a while. Rhea, coming off an injury, is so focused on Liv realistically that it's so easy to forget about four other competitors in a way. Bailey and Naomi have their own kind of thing going on, their own little tension again. Io, who I've said before, I think is arguably the best women's wrestler in the company, is a former world champion herself, but is just kind of thrown in there. Almost doesn't even tie in at all, except for the continuous run of War Games matches she's been in. So that team's almost a little bit more thrown together than even the Nia Liv team, in my opinion. I just feel like that it does a little bit of an injustice to Liv and Nia to have them lose on a team together, even if neither of them take the pinfall. It does a little bit of an injustice to them as champions. You want to keep your champions strong. I'm not saying they gotta win every match clean, this, that, and whatnot, but this one, I do think they have to stand tall.
Agreed. And I think story wise, Bailey or Naomi have to be the one to get pinned. Like I
That's
think
fair.
the finish, Bianca and Jade most likely, Bianca and Rhea most likely aren't getting pinned. They are the two
Well,
strong. I
it
I highly
depends.
doubt either of them
Are
get
are they really going with like a rehash of Liv Rhea again? If they are, I can't count
probably.
out. I can't. Yeah, exactly. I can't count out like a Liv pinfall on Rhea. To be honest,
I just don't see it. I just don't see it. In this
well, I
match.
do.
Well, we'll find out who's right and who's wrong, pal. No, I just think like there's so clearly either of them getting pinned is just like WWE
Yeah,
never books them
no,
that
I
way.
agree. I agree. Yeah, I
Uh,
almost can't see it either. That's
yeah,
the only avenue in which I can see it is if they are really not only rehashing Liv Rhea, but going like right into it. Like maybe that
yeah.
happens at Saturday's main event or something. Outside of that, it seems likely that maybe Bailey hits a Bailey to belly on Naomi and just lets Naomi get pinned. I don't know. Who knows where it can go, but I agree.
So to now segue to the men's War Games match, you could make this same topic of conversation, the same argument, the same discussion
Mm-hmm.
with the OG bloodline now teaming with CM Punk. And there is a clear division between CM Punk and Roman Reigns and them teaming. That story can be very similar here against a team like the New Bloodline teaming with Bronson Reed, where a much better cohesion, all on the same page. Bronson Reed just slid right in and feels a part of that group. I don't know if that story would then play out the same. You're not going to do the same exact story both ways, but it is essentially like you have the same potential for both matches for that same type of friction, different reasons,
Mm-hmm.
but two of your main members in the tag match clearly are not going to be on the same page no matter what.
Yeah, this War Games match is exactly what War Games is almost built for. At least this team version of War Games. I definitely think there's iterations of War Games we can get in the future that changes it up. But for as long as they run a 4-on-4, 5-on-5, 3-on-3, whatever War Games match, it again will never work out as well as it could have with Bloodline versus Bloodline walking into it. We are beating a dead horse here by telling you fans at C2 Wrestling yet again that this should be 4-on-4. Bloodline versus OG Bloodline. Adding Bronson Reed, who has fit like a glove with the new Bloodline. He really does. Even coming out with them during their entrance on Saturday, didn't even bat an eye. It's throwing up the one. Didn't even bat an eye. Bronson Reed fit right in. He's got the look. He's got the ability. I don't think it's forever. I think it's really just to get through this pay-per-view, But Bronson Reed fit in perfectly. The other side of things, it was Rollins, maybe it was Cody, maybe it was this or that. Again, the best option is what they gave us. So I can't complain at all. I know I'm complaining a little bit by saying it should be 4-on-4, but I'm not really complaining because they really did give us the best alternative they could have. I believe I said it in our SmackDown review again. When they had the backstage segment between the Bloodline, Sami Zayn, the Usos, and Roman, and, Sami again pitched, what about Rollins? What about Cody? And Roman shut them down real quick. It was, again, more so Triple H saying, we get it. We know. They know what the fans want. They're listening a little bit. I think this has been the plan for a while now, is CM Punk, and that, again, only adds to the CM Punk Rollins tension. I stepped up when you didn't type thing. I think this is going to play out wonderfully. I do have another must-win team in this War Games match that we'll get to in a few moments, but OG Bloodline, new Bloodline. CM Punk doesn't really have much of a tie to the new Bloodline. He really is thrown into this match between the tie of Heyman and Roman. Those are his big ties here. So is it going to lead to some tension between him and Roman? Is that maybe what cost them the match? Is there going to be a Roman Punk match coming up? Because after the Drew feud, Punk had a little bit of time off, just returned. What does Punk do after this? Is he just going to fill the match and then move on to something new? It really makes me think we get Punk Roman somewhere coming up.
I think we're getting Punk Rollins. I think this is the build to Punk Rollins.
Yeah. I think that's Mania, though. Like, what are they going to do for Punk to hold over till then? Put him in the Rumble, of course. Don't get me wrong. But, they're that stare down between him and Roman on SmackDown with Heyman sitting in the middle clearly was something, and long-term storytelling. Don't get me wrong. It's been great in WWE for the last little while. So they could push that further back than WrestleMania 41. But it leads me to wonder just a little bit if they have a backup idea,
I mean, that match is money. That match.
Must see.
We don't even need this new story. You can just go off of their story from 10 years ago.
Yep.
That alone is enough. You don't even need that story. You just need this is Seth Rollins, this is Roman Reigns, or this is CM Punk, this is Roman Reigns. They need to face. Like it wouldn't even need either of those stories, but obviously there's so many layers to this. My big focus from this match is, does it feel like we're going to get Roman Solo at Mania? Because that match, that one-on-one match is still going to happen. Mania, I keep saying Mania feels like it's around the corner. Not for this matchup.
Yeah.
This feels like Mania is 10 years away if you're going to do Roman versus Solo. But then at the same time, it's like, well, you're not going to have them face at the Rumble. You're not going to have them face the week before the Rumble. And then what are you going to, you're going to have the payoff at the Raw at Netflix. You're not going to do that. They're both on SmackDown.
Yeah.
This match feels like they are trying to push it to Mania, but it feels like we need, it's almost like they need a bigger event in between to main event it, because it is a main event level match. I think the OG Bloodline and Punk win.
Okay.
I'm basing that off of the new bloodline winning the 6-man tag,
Mm.
Roman already getting pinned. And when I look at the match, I don't really see Sammy taking a pin.
Mm.
Roman just took a pin. He's not going to get pinned again. At least I don't think. Punk's not coming in just to eat the pin. I doubt Jay or Jimmy get pinned. This match like screams to me Tama Tonga or Tongaloa are they're eating that pin. Like that's what when I look at this match, like it screams to me, one of you two, your shoulders are staying on the mat for a 3 count.
Yeah, it definitely lines up mostly for Tama Tonga or Tongaloa to take the pin. Now, my hot take is potentially the opposite of what you just said. I do think the new bloodline should win this match, although
No,
I
you not should. You asked who will. I said who will. Who
okay,
should is the new bloodline.
who should win is the new bloodline, who I also think will win is the OG bloodline. Yes, I do agree. I think the OG bloodline stands out on top just for kind of the same reason you said. But I think the new bloodline needs the win a little bit more. Roman is another one of those guys. Even if he did take another pinfall here, it's Roman Reigns. It's cool. He ain't getting hurt by it by any means. You know, there's a little bit of tension between that team with Punk just be getting kind of thrown in, where that new bloodline is family. You know, that's the bloodline. You know, they're united. You know, Tama Tonga is insane. You know, running around screaming at everybody. Jacob Fatu's a beast. Solo, you know, I think Solo honestly is going to take a little bit of like a back burner spot in the sport games. Probably the last man to enter the cage. I think is going to be more in the ring, calling shots, picking his spots. You know, I can see them kind of desolating the OG bloodline. To be honest, I don't know why, but I have that feeling that like the majority of the match is going to be the upper hand of the new bloodline, which I would like to see them stand tall. But I think we'll then get that moment of almost that hot tag type lift from the OG bloodline where Sammy hits the haluva kick and then we get a big splash from Jay and then CM Punk is a GTS, Roman hits the spear and maybe that's the 1, 2, 3. I just think overall storytelling, whether you're leading into solo Roman or whatever you're leading into, new bloodline taking the win does more for whatever's to come. OG bloodline gets the win. It hurts the new bloodline. It doesn't keep them as much of a threat level as they already are. And, not that the tag titles were like some grand, man, they're legit by having the tag titles on the bloodline, but you had them lose the tag titles. I get they had that 3-way in Saudi, but that's, exhibition. Doesn't really count too much, in my opinion. If you have them lose this War Games match, they're not really the threat that you're making them out to be. Now, the little bit of a wrench in this, in my opinion, you've probably seen the talk on social media. Paul Heyman's shirt, the pocket, the clothing, very reminiscent of Solo Sikoa. Maybe it doesn't happen at War Games, but is there some turn coming from Heyman? Is that going to be something that we see maybe here that helps the new bloodline win? Is Heyman going to do my tribal chief abandoned me? Is it going to be a storyline of Solo did what a tribal chief should have done? Take over the bloodline. Maybe he, even though he was attacked by that new bloodline, respects it in a way. Is that going to be something that costs them the loss? Is it going to happen down the line? Maybe it doesn't happen at all. People are just reading too far into it. But the small details can mean something. I think that's maybe the next layer in this storyline is Paul Heyman.
The Heyman Roman story has 2 strong avenues they could take from this, in my opinion. If the OG bloodline wins, you have the story of Heyman came in, executed his plan, and it was successful. But Roman didn't like Heyman's plan because he doesn't like CM Punk, and Heyman did it without consulting Roman and without talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, if it fails, you have that same exact reasoning I just gave of this is Heyman's plan, this is Heyman's doing, and it costed them the match in Roman's mind. That sets up even more friction between Heyman and Roman. So to me, the Heyman Roman feud or story has 2 strong avenues. I'm not saying like they could win and everything's just gonna be fine and dandy and Roman's happy to have Heyman back. The way he's been acting though tells me it's not going to be that cut and dry.
Yeah.
Even with the return, he's back with Jay, Jimmy, and Sammy, but he still has like those little moments of the old Roman
Yeah.
that will always peek through. So I think no matter the outcome, that decision, Heyman coming back, not consulting Roman, bringing in Punk, who Roman publicly does not like, and that's how they get the win or lose. Roman, I think, will have some issue with that, whether it works out for them or doesn't. Now, they might not do that. It might just be cut and dry. I don't think so. That to me makes things more interesting. And I guess if that's the avenue you're taking, that's why you did the 5-on-5. I guess it then makes a little bit more sense.
Mm-hmm.
I still think obviously 4-on-4 from a match standpoint was the way to do
Better.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is a very likely outcome to this and Heyman's return.
Let me ask you if you think this is likely. Do we see Seth Rollins at all?
Um, I don't know because you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of don't think that him and Bronson Reed are going to rehash their thing.
I think they will. I think that match is going to be more like a throwaway, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be made to be like this mega like rematch between them two. I think that's built for Saturday night's main event, to be honest. But that's great for that show, actually. I think if you've run that in 2 or 3 weeks in December, I think that fits the bill. And then you move on from it. I can very much, in a way, see here like, maybe Sammy and Tama Tonga start the match or something, and then Bronson Reed is the second entrant or whatever. And as he leaves the cage and is walking to the ring, maybe Rollins comes down and just beats the shit out of him a little bit and then throws him into the ring. And it just starts them at a little bit of a disadvantage. Maybe Rollins doesn't actually get in the cage, help too much, but I think it plays a little bit to the I'll never team with Roman, but I'm still beefing with Bronson, I guess. But then, maybe there's a little bit of a stare down between him and Punk as well. Maybe there's a little bit of tension there to kind of add to that feud. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't need it necessarily, but I'm not counting it out. I think Rollins can definitely show up here, still be involved to some degree.
I think the only issue, if he were to show up or be involved, he'd be attacking both teams.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he doesn't need to get physical with Roman and that OG bloodline at all, though, because that's kind of where Rollins is. Is it's not like I need to even fight Roman. I'm just done with Roman. I don't need to
Well,
team
no,
with him.
he'd fight Punk.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna get to. Is the tension there is really Punk. He's done with Roman. The fight would be with Punk, but they're not there yet. Even I definitely can see a stare down between the two of them and something along those lines that leads to the tit for tat of like I stepped up when you wouldn't, blah 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 blah, whatever they do between the two of them. But I think they're still going to do this Bronson Seth singles match in which I think Bronson goes over in that one. I can definitely see that again happening at Saturday night's main event, where maybe the reverse happens. Maybe Punk comes out during that match and costs Seth or something, whatever, and that furthers that feud. Who knows? This is all fantasy booking at this point. That again is just some side note to what is maybe a potential for War Games. I think the match is more of a straight up 5-on-5 match, and we don't get involvement, but there's a little bit of maybe Heyman turns, maybe Rollins comes out here, something like that. There's some things that could go down. Again, inside a cage though too. Doesn't need to happen. Rollins going to climb the cage. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for all that to go down. If anything, it would be maybe a quick little sneak attack on Bronson. Prior to Punk being announced, it was always this question of, is that even going to be a 5-on-5? If Rollins accepts the spot, are they going to even actually be in the match? We won't really know until the match starts. Punk being announced, yeah, he's going to be in the match. I'm looking forward to it though, man. Punk getting announced again has recovered this story, in my opinion, to the most extent they could outside of doing 4v4. Again, still would have been better, but it is what it is. The arena was sold out as far as I'm concerned, pretty much sold out even prior to the Punk announcement. So announcing Punk, advertising, get some people to tune into the show per se, and I think that's great for wrestling, for WWE. I still maybe would have liked the surprise of Punk happening at Survivor Series a little bit more. But regardless, he's even said he wants to get in the ring with a guy like Bronson Reed. Maybe they got some stuff they want to showcase here. It's going to be a great match, man.
Yeah, if that's what it takes, then I'm all in. I'm very excited for it. Make sure you watch it with us on our YouTube channel,
Right
C2
here.
Wrestling. We will be live streaming. Before we get out of here, it is Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
And to, I guess, kind of bite Chris Van Vliet, he always ends his interviews asking people what they're grateful for. Gratitude's very big to him, he says.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what is talked about on Thanksgiving. So we will do our own version talking about Thanksgiving, what we're thankful for in wrestling.
Yeah.
And if you guys listening know us, you know this ain't going to be the most heartfelt thing ever. Uh, I'll start with, we'll just be absolutely random,
Mm-hmm.
but I am so thankful for Triple H.
Yeah, no, literally, that was the exact thing I was going to say. Maybe this is really just standard, but it's the Triple H regime. We've been maybe even beating a dead horse with that throughout our tenure at C2 Wrestling. That the change in regime has been not only incredible for WWE, but wrestling as a whole. Triple H, SmackDown, Raw, NXT has been better than ever. We got development in the indies with the WWE ID program. That has been a fantastic thing so far for not only WWE, but all of wrestling. Anyone that says otherwise, get real. It's fantastic stuff. The Triple H regime, thank you, Trips.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to think of like random things I'm thankful for. I am so thankful that they finally put some goddamn blue in the Intercontinental title.
Oh my God. Oh my God. If we're talking championships, it's funny because I was going through the shop the other night during Monday Night Raw and just looking at some random stuff. There was just some discounts. And I was going through all the titles. Those old school Raw penny titles aren't even on the website. They're not even
Good,
selling those, dude. They're selling replicas from 30 years ago, but they're not even
good.
selling those penny titles anymore. I am so thankful that we have tag titles that are different, split titles, all of that. I've even seen a little shade online, even as recent as last week. Oh man, the Finn and JD haven't defended their titles in a while. They should have never split the titles. This is why it should be one set. No, there should be two sets. There's two brands. Get a set on each show. There's more than enough tag teams to go around. It's been great stuff. I understand they haven't defended the titles in a while. It's not like there's nothing going on outside of that. It's great content all around. Very thankful for the separation in titles. I would be a little bit more thankful if it was a tighter brand split, but that's okay. It's a lot of bloodline stuff going on. But blue in the IC title, new tag championships. Thank you, Trips.
Another one I'm thankful for, and it's quite obvious if you know me,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm thankful for my Motor City Machine Guns, keeping childhood Chris and his TNA love alive and strong. I know
Yeah,
there's plenty of TNA OGs, Styles being hurt, that strong new breath of TNA OGs being in WWE. I'm so thankful they chose to go to WWE and immediately become the tag team champions instead of going to AEW.
absolutely. It has been a fever dream still to see the Motor City Machine Guns in WWE. They're on screen, and I can't even believe watching them on a Friday night SmackDown. It's baffling. There's only so many names that could transfer over from a company to a WWE, and it's as crazy as the Guns. I remember early NXT Black and Gold days. Samoa Joe debuting was wild to me. That was another one of that level.
You loved
Styles,
his theme song, right?
oh yeah, that's probably the greatest theme song of all time. Bubblegum Pop, we call it. Man, what a miss with that theme. Tell you what, I'm not thankful for
Yeah.
is
I'm
CFO or
thankful they
whatever that
changed
was.
it.
Yeah, yeah. But Styles was another name. Samoa Joe. The Guns are maybe the last of that kind of like really respectable TNA only run. Obviously, this was stuff outside of that, but that's where the Guns are most notable. Crazy to see. Crazy to see.
One last thing that I'm thankful for, and I'm going to say I'm thankful for it because it's going away,
Mm-hmm.
But man, I am so thankful we got a nice little stint of 2 hour Raws again. Because as much as
Yes.
the 3 hour show is needed for how many stories they have,
Mm-hmm.
my own personal life,
Uh-huh.
the show finishing at 10, us wrapping up videos at 10:30, getting stuff uploaded for 11:30, being in
Yeah.
bed by midnight compared to being in bed by 1:30, and I got to be up for work or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so thankful for the stint of the 2 hour Raws.
Yeah, as am I for sure. In my situation, there was no wrestling last night or today, and I was still up till 5 a.m. So when the show ends, it doesn't make a difference for me. But definitely thankful for the stint of 2 hour Raws. I do think, and I can't believe I'm even saying this, because if you would have asked me only a few months ago, I would have said 2 hours for sure. Kind of missing the 3 hours a
It
little
needs to
bit.
be
You know, it
three.
needs to be three. Ah, man, it almost pains me to say. Now, I'm not going to say SmackDown needs to be three. I do like a little bit of a differential between a 3 hour and a 2 hour show. The idea seems to be that SmackDown's also going 3 hours. But in all honesty, when you're adding split tag titles and you've got a women's US title, potentially an IC coming around, all these championships, all these superstars, all these stories, they need the time. If you're not going to do a 3 hour Raw and a 3 hour SmackDown, you almost need a fourth brand at this point, and that's not happening. So, 3 hour Raw, 3 hour SmackDown. I'll end it with one more thing I'm thankful for regarding that. That is Netflix, baby. Thankful for Netflix. The ease of use it's going to be with Monday Night Raw being on Netflix, the whole network essentially pushing over to there over time. Streaming services are taking over the world. It definitely is the right move, in my opinion. And I think this is only going to do wonders for wrestling down the line. Interested to see how it does on Netflix. You know, that honestly is even more worldwide, in my opinion, than just cable. So I think they are already going to have a higher view count than they would on USA. This main, first few weeks of Raw might be over the top big because it's new. They're going to go for broke. I want to give it like 6 months, let it settle down a little bit, and have it become the norm that Monday Night Raw is on Netflix and see how it holds up. But that's a big change for not just wrestling, man, for TV, for entertainment. Wrestling is again very like a niche community, but it's the biggest thing in the world. You know, them moving over there is only the stepping stone for all these sports, TV, everything to just go streaming.
Yeah, NBA's got an Amazon deal. NFL
Yep.
is going to be doing some Netflix games. They obviously already do the Amazon games.
Mm-hmm.
But WWE's been on Peacock and stuff like that for a while, had their own streaming network and WWE network. I did lie. I did previously just say one last thing I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful for, but I do actually have one actual last thing I'm thankful for in wrestling, and that's the few people that have supported us in the C2 Nation, C2 Wrestling, talking wrestling with us, leaving comments. Some of the returning faces that we see, love chatting wrestling with you and hope to be chatting wrestling with you live going forward on all the PLEs and some post shows and stuff like that. So very thankful for all of you.
Absolutely. Can't agree more. This has been a lot of fun for us. Again, this is us shooting the shit, talking wrestling, no different than we really would just between the two of us off camera. It's great to get more heads involved, talk shop with you guys all over wrestling. We're only growing from here. We feel lucky in the little bit of the start we've had, only a few months in. Growing subscriber count ain't stopping here. We want you guys to go down below, comment on the videos, tell us what you think. Tell us what you're thankful for in wrestling leading up to this Thanksgiving video. Again, don't forget, this is a Wednesday release, normally dropping on Thursday, these podcasts. Be sure to tune into what we got coming for Survivor Series. Subscribe so you get notifications. Again, one last time, we will be here live for Survivor Series. Don't want to miss it.
For Snowden, CTD, another pod in the books, a lot more to come. Make sure, like, subscribe, you name it. We will catch you guys live during Survivor Series right here on C2 Wrestling.